Welcome everyone to Libreria Online. I'm delighted to be hosting Tine Høeg and Misha Hoekstra. Tine has just released today in the UK her debut novel, New Passengers, which won a major literary debut prize in Denmark. And Misha has expertly translated it into English, so someone like me can discover a new voice and a new style of writing. Misha is a translator of pedigree who's been translating some of the absolute Danish classics and has also been shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize for his translation of Mirror Shoulder Signal, written by Daughter Norse. I hope I pronounced daughter's name correctly there.
Yes.
Excellent. That's a victory for me. So yeah, just welcome everyone. And I guess we're going to start with a reading from the book, the first few pages. First, Tine will be reading in Danish, and then Misha will be offering a reading of the translation. And then we'll get the discussion going. So over to you, Tine.
Yeah, you can just see the Danish version here. Yeah, and I will read the first 3 pages. A bit weird to read in Danish when some of you can't understand it, but yeah. August. Jeg har købt et pendlerkort. Jeg har fået et nyt navn. Et lærernavn. Sat sammen af bogstaver fra mit for- og efternavn. Jeg har fået koden til gymnasiets netværk, der ændres hvert halve år efter princippet sommer 16, vinter 16, sommer 17, vinter 17. Jeg er blevet sat ind i systemerne. Det er tilfældigt, at vi falder i snak i toget på min første skoledag. Jeg er så nervøs, og vores ben rører ved hinanden, da vi sætter os. Du er grafiker på et rejsebureau. Du er også pendler. Du er 10 år ældre end mig. Du er gift og far til en pige. Jeg spejler mig i en butiksrude på hovedbanen om tirsdagen. Jeg køber 2 kopper kaffe og stiller mig på rulletrappen. Det viser sig, at du har gjort det samme. Vi stiger på med kopperne. Jeg forærer mine til 2 teenagere, der sidder lænet op af hinanden og ser trætte ud. De bliver glade og overraskede. Blodet i kroppen. En susen for ørerne, da toget sætter i gang. Første gang jeg ser dig nøgen. Togtoilet. Et sted mellem København og Næstved. Jeg har ikke prøvet at ville have nogen på den måde før.
All right. Thanks. This is the cover of the English, and you can see there's a shiny strip here, which if you're a Danish train passenger, you will recognize as similar to a Danish train ticket.
Oh, cool.
So it's a little obscure perhaps. And new passengers, new Reisende, that's what a train conductor says when they go around asking for tickets. They say, new Reisende, you know, sort of a half question. So this is from the very beginning, August. I've bought a monthly pass. I've been assigned a new name, a teacher's name, comprised of 4 letters from my first and last names. I've been given the code to the high school network, which is changed every 6 months according to the principle summer 16, winter 16, summer 17, winter 17. I've been briefed on the systems. It's by chance we fall to talking on the train, my first day of teaching. I'm nervous and our legs graze each other when we sit down. You're a graphic designer at a travel agency. You're a commuter too. You're 10 years older than me. You're married. and father to a girl. I look at my reflection in a store window at Copenhagen Central Station on Tuesday. I buy 2 cups of coffee and position myself on the escalator. Turns out you've done the same thing. We board with the cups. I donate mine to 2 teenagers who sit leaning up against each other, looking tired. They're happy and surprised. Blood in my body, a thrumming in my ears when the train starts to move. The first time I see you naked, train toilet, someplace between Copenhagen and Næstved. I've never wanted someone this way before.
Thank you, Misha. So the story is about love, the new job and navigating adulthood, the authority of being a teacher, and the commute. I guess the first question I wanted to ask was where did the idea for the story originate? Because this is quite an interesting angle.
Yeah, I think that I knew from the beginning that I wanted to write about being in the late 20s, almost 30 years old, this kind of phase of life where you are not, it's not a transition into adulthood, it's kind of the years where you're supposed to already be an adult. And I think that I experienced myself that society has a lot of expectations of where you're supposed to be at that age. You're supposed to know who you are and what you want to do and what kind of job you want to have, and maybe start creating a family and all these expectations. And I think that a lot of people feel like they are a bit lost at this age. And I think that there's not written that much about this kind of these years. And I wanted to kind of examine that. And I think that it's a very lonely place for the narrator. She doesn't fit in anywhere, and I wanted to let her really be searching for herself, both in her job. She feels she doesn't belong there, and she can't really see herself as one of the teachers, and she's not a student. She's kind of in between, and her love life is kind of the same story. She's much more of a spectator, or she just observes people around her, but she doesn't feel like a part of any community. She feels kind of lost and alone. And I knew that I wanted to write something about that these years. And the idea to let her be a commuter came from myself. I was a commuter at the time. I was a high school teacher. So I had a lot of I could just pick things from my everyday life and use them to kind of create this universe. And I think that the train, that starts the story and is kind of like something that you visit a lot of times during the story is an important place, because it's kind of this limbo position that just is very perfect for the life that I wanted to write about, and her situation. It
feels like the train is, or the commute on the train is a metaphor. Like you said, it's this transitional age where you're expected to know, but you don't feel like you're part of anything. And so was the commute and the setting like a very conscious decision?
No, not really. I can see now that you can use it as a metaphor, and I just did. But it came to me because I was sitting on this train every day and had a lot of time to imagine the lives of the people I was looking at, and I did a lot of writing on the train. So I think that it kind of happened, but it was perfect for the story that I wanted to tell. But I think that it's often like that it's just coincidences also, but you kind of form them and transform them to to make the story you want to tell stronger. And I think that to put her on the train was just the right place for her to be. Yeah. And actually, the idea of the title that Misha just mentioned came because I was sitting on this train every day and kind of heard this phrase and just took it and used it as the title. Yeah. And one of my friends said that it was the perfect title because I could always think about how many times during a day that someone would mention my book because
yeah, a bit of free advertising.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. So when you were writing the novel, the idea of writing in free verse, and your second novel was also written in free verse, I understand.
Yeah.
Was that is that something that you kind of gravitated towards, or as you were writing? And could you share some insight into the process of writing and why you settled on that form?
Yeah, I can just maybe, if some of you don't have the text in front of you, it kind of looks like this, the pages, and it wasn't something that I had planned before I started writing. The text kind of appeared like that when I sat down in front of my text. It just popped out like that, and it took some time for me to just settle on that and not trying to find out, am I writing prose or am I writing poetry? What is this? And do I have to make a decision? And it kind of took some time for me just to, okay, I don't have to make a decision. I can just write something that I don't have a name for, but and I think that to me, I kind of see the texts like pictures or scenes that I put together and they form a narrative. And kind of like a movie or something in my head, and the text just have to look like that too. And so it wasn't really something I had decided before. It happened while I was writing.
So it was quite an organic kind of process.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things I really appreciated about reading the free verse is the amount of space. Not just on the page, but as a reader, the space between the lines and the way that a handful of words can depict something, but almost like a vignette, like a dashing off, but giving you that kind of time, like mental arena to kind of just imagine. That kind of works beautifully as I was reading it. There was moments where you're just pausing and you're writing about like the sun coming in through the window and forming a square that the hand rests in, and those little kind of images or kind of exchanges as well.
I think that to me the white on the pages have the same fylde. Misha, hvordan siger man det? Sorry.
It's filling.
The white on the pages, it's just the same as the text. So I just use it kind of just like I use the words. The pauses are very important, just as important as when someone is saying something. So I use that, and but it also demands that you really, when you have so few words on the pages, you really have to use the right ones. You can't you can't be sloppy in any way. You really have to to choose the right ones. But
because you've got those like a few lines where you've got the couple are in the toilet of the train, and then you've got you're basically depicting a scene of passion, but really crafting it in just a few words, and then offering a lot of space before moving on to how the narrative kind of evolves to the next scene, or say the inner turmoil of the female character as she's yeah, as she's kind of progressing through this life of authority and teaching and the affair.
Yeah.
Was there anything that I've not really touched on that you wanted to share in the writing of the novel, or the reception of it?
Sorry?
Is there anything that you wish to add to?
No, I just want to, that when I write in this way, I kind of, some of the scenes are not finished until the reader sits with the text, because so many things happens when you, because of the white space and because of the way I kind of cut the text. So I think that a lot is going on in the reader's head, and I like that and I think that parts of the story are different to every reader, because I don't there are a lot of things that I don't explain, and you have to kind of imagine them yourself. So yeah.
The other thing, if I could
go on, Misha.
interrupt. So I think the other thing that's really interesting about what you do, Tine, is that because there's no punctuation, it's unclear often when you start a new little stanza, which is often just one line, who's talking. You think it's often a continuation of what's come before, but it's not until you get to the end of that line, or maybe even to the next one, that you realize it's actually somebody else talking, or it's something that is on somebody's t-shirt, or it's not clear if it's something that it's in the person's, the protagonist's head, or it's often not clear until the end of one of these component poems, if we'll call them that. If it's a dream, if it's a film on YouTube, if it's
that's kind of
a description of reality. And so that requires the reader to do a lot of work and to do some rereading, and then the reader can feel really smart because they figure it out. I mean, I think there's a real intellectual pleasure I get in reading through it, just because it's a bit of a puzzle, and it feels like there is a dominant narrative or a dominant way that it's intended to be read, but that's only because you've crafted it really well with those just a few words here, a few words here. So I think that's very artful. And it's one of the things that I really enjoyed about working with it.
So Misha, did you can you explain how you got the opportunity to translate the work into English? How did you?
Yeah, so Tine and I were both at a Danish writers and translators retreat called Hel Hovedgården. It's an old manor house in a big estate on Denmark's second largest lake, and there's a huge manor house where during refuge periods, during retreat periods, there are eight writers, illustrators, translators there. So it's a huge place. And we were both there at the same time in July 2017. And it's a place where people hung out at night. I often, I would bring my guitar and I would play, I would inflict my songs on people at night when they didn't have anything else to do. So they would listen to me, and people would spontaneously eat together and such. So we met there.
Yeah.
And Tine had just had this book come out in Danish, and there was a reading, and I heard some of it, and I said it sounded really cool, and she left the book, the Danish book. I don't remember if it was outside my door or in my food box.
Your food box, yeah, it was
my food box, because so there was this note on the front. I don't know if the Danes can read it there. But it says, "Dear Misha, I've loaned," which means I've stolen, "I've loaned 2 carrots from you. Here you have my book as a thank you. Tina."
Yeah.
And I read it and while I was there, and I was really excited about it. So I said I would really like to do a sample translation. There's good support from the Danish Arts Foundation for doing samples. And so I did that, and I really wanted to do more with that. And then it went pretty quickly. There's I mean, it looks like a proper sized book, but there is a lot of white space.
And how long does the translation process take? Is it usually quite quickly as a process, or is it something that you have to kind of revise over and over again?
Yes. Yeah, it's both. I think my initial translation of the different sections, there's 5 different month sections, August through December, went fairly quickly, but there were some small problem areas that took an inordinate amount of time. And then I spent a lot of time, particularly with the editor, not so much with Tina,
Okay.
but with the editor, going through and trying to make it read as musically and as mysteriously.
Yes.
To give the reader a comparable experience to what they had in Danish.
And I guess that's one of the kind of key elements to the craft of translation, is trying to kind of maintain the effect of the original in the target language. Do you often find that there's those problematic passages when translating a work?
Yeah. Yes. And it'd be nice if you could just cut them out, but that's taking liberty.
And when you encounter those, is it a case of going back to the editor, or in this case you went to the editor, but would you go to the author? And
yeah, and I did the initial drafts. I did the first couple chapters I sent to Tina first, because there wasn't an editor yet. It hadn't been bought by Lolli Editions.
Okay. And so is when you're sending it to Tina, is it a collaborative process, or is it more of like a sense check? You know, this is what I've done. Do you approve?
In this case, well, you can tell me, Tina. Tina seemed reasonably satisfied with most things. There were some things that I flagged.
Yeah.
Some problem areas, and we discussed different possible solutions.
Yeah.
But
it was very moving for me, actually, to read the first chapters. Just it was to see my words, but in your words, it was very mind blowing, actually. Yeah.
Well, I did find that it seemed to, obviously I am American, for those who can't hear it, but it seemed to fall really easily into my Midwestern American register. And I think the voice came naturally and easily. So it was just some particular things having to do with language. When she's talking about particular Danish words, she's a Danish teacher, the protagonist, or jokes, or particular Danish traditions, or sports, the culture of the Danish gymnasium, the Danish high school.
Yeah.
So sometimes they were difficult to translate easily and still give it this profluence, this drive, so that people would just read it quickly, but still with that choppiness that's in the original.
Yeah.
When I was reading it you kind of sense those different those cultural differences. So my take on the culture within the Danish school was one of like, this is really liberal. I wouldn't imagine going on a school trip and being allowed to drink beer or kind of communal meals, those kind of things. It felt, that the authority was there. So trying to preserve the Danish culture for a target audience that may be unfamiliar with it, do you have to make concessions in the language?
I don't think so, because I think people say, wow, that's Denmark. I wish I went to school there. Or, I do think, so we translated gymnasium as high school, but it's a bit of a different institution, and the kids are older. And in Denmark, it's legal for kids to buy beer when they're 16.
Okay.
They have to wait till they're 18 to buy hard liquor, but it's not hard to get. In the United States, most places you have to be 21, although people manage to get alcohol. They don't drink with their teachers.
Yeah, that kind of struck me as something that was very Danish. The idea of a blurring of the authoritarian lines, and that's also one of the key kind of factors within the novel as well. That you've got a teacher that's new to the profession, who's relatively young, but is also kind of fraternizing. There's those little scenes where they're in Rome, or smoking outside at 3 a.m. I mean, are those aspects that you witnessed as a teacher yourself, or purely of the imagination?
I've experienced some of that, and she's also she's mistaken for a student by the janitor, for example, and that happened. And I think that being very friendly with your teachers is very common in Denmark. And I think that's important for her, for the story, because she has to be in this kind of middle position where she's almost as much a student as she is a teacher, or she feels just as much as a student as she feels as a teacher. So I think, therefore it's important that Misha didn't change that in the English version, because it's a part of the story, and it's very important for her place of mind or state of mind.
Because there's a couple of lines where you've got a precocious student who's used a word, and then the teacher has to kind of duck out and Google what it means. I feel like that every day in the bookshop when someone comes in and asks me something. I'm like,
But I think that everyone can feel like that. Just being an adult, you have to pretend a lot of the time that you know what you're doing. And even though if you're not a teacher, in any other job, or in maybe being a mom or being a dad, you a lot of the time just have to pretend you know what you're doing, and then go out and you don't really know. So
I think there's a phrase we use called "fake it till you make it." It did feel like that for the teacher in a couple of instances. I guess I've pretty much asked everything I can think of about translation without getting too technical, Misha. But is there anything you wish to add from your experience of work?
I thought one of the things we had talked about beforehand was there's some spots that were really difficult to translate, and how I managed to come up with a relatively satisfactory solution. So one example was Danish rundbold, which is this sport that is not recognizable it won't be recognizable to people in the UK. It won't be recognizable at all to people in the United States. And there's just one two-page scene that involves the rules of this game and just trying to convey that. So I ended up looking on a bunch of schools in Minnesota where they actually play this game. They're sort of Scandinavian cultural institutions, and how they explain it, and how so I ended up just calling it Danish softball and let some of the rules come out themselves, but just finding that was difficult.
Yeah.
And the
I was just going to say, when I read it, it kind of seemed close to a game of rounders rather than baseball. But would that be where you've tried to bridge the idea of a very Danish idiosyncratic game with like the approximation of the target language that maybe?
Yeah, and also in this case, the target language is American English, even though it's only being published in the UK right now. That was one thing I've been, I think, fairly lucky in, is that with most of the books I've translated, they've just let me translate them in very American English.
Yeah.
And they usually come out in the UK first, and there's always some people that it really annoys.
Oh,
but other people seem to think it's exotic.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of why anyone would get annoyed, but yeah, there are those exotic qualities. But I think that's why, as a monolingual English person, that's why I kind of get excited when I see a book like this getting published. It offers me a glimpse into another way of living, and in some cases thinking, but also seeing universal qualities. So I think it's great that Tina's novel exists and dares to kind of write about these aspects of life that aren't really mined in a lot of novels or fiction, like the commute. Tina, I think there's only like a limited kind of number of titles over decades where this is quite a significant, like the train's a significant scene. It's why I appreciate the craft of translation, Misha, because people like yourself take a very unappreciated skill in making this work available to someone like me, who I don't like reading English novels by English authors. I'm just going to say that I read to mistake. I don't want to read about boarding schools and class struggles and silent dinners around with your parents. I want something else. So thank you. I don't know how we're doing for time. We're still pretty good.
So one thing that I would say is that with the language, I spent a lot of time working both with the editor, Denise Rose Henson, and a very astute copy editor, because there were a lot of places, since we were trying to preserve the American English and make it work as an American English book, but it was going to be read primarily by people in the United Kingdom. There are some things that mean the opposite or just won't be understood readily. So sometimes it was just working through and trying to find alternatives to different phrases.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that struck me as too incongruous. I think
that's great.
I think there's a bridge between like English and American English through popular culture over 50 to 100 years now, that that kind of process of translation exists within the reader's mind almost seamlessly. And I felt like that when I read this. I didn't feel like it was written for the other side of the pond. I felt like, yeah, I'm getting a very Danish sensibility in this novel for me. So yeah, it's a massive success in terms of the work there.
Can I ask you something, Misha?
Yeah.
Did you read it out loud when you were translating? Because when I write, I read everything out loud to myself a lot of times. It kind of, I feel like I write with my entire body, or kind of with the with my it's because it has to sound like music or something. It really has to have a certain rhythm. So I use my voice to find out when the text is if it's good enough, or if it's finished. I really have to hear it. Do you do that, or how do you do?
Yes. I don't do it as much as I used to. I always read with the sound on when I read silently. And I think in particular, because there's a lot of misdirection that goes on, where you initially, and it's a visual misdirection. You start reading a line and as I said, you start reading a line and you think somebody else is saying it, and you discover who the actual speaker is at the end of the line. And that sort of in-betweenness is a little hard to capture when you read it out loud, or it's lost. So with this particular book, I mean, there were definitely passages where I read it out loud, especially problem passages, things that just did not sound like they were idiomatic. The other thing is that sometimes I try to preserve the line length so that none of the lines wrapped around, as they don't do in the Danish. And usually that wasn't a problem, but sometimes in English we'll use a lot more words, other times we use a lot fewer, but those places where you use a lot more, it was a question of how do I fit it in?
I really appreciate that you have done that, because it's also a part of it. For me, it has to sound right, but it also has to look right on the page, kind of like a sculpture that you can't. And I think you've done that very perfectly, actually.
Okay.
So I know that we were going to talk about like the aspect of adapting a free-verse novel for the theatre if we've got time. We've got a few minutes, I guess, just before a potential Q&A. And I just wanted to ask, like, how did the opportunity arise to actually adapt this for the theatre? Because that, I mean, if you could shed light on that, that would be amazing. But also, could you just tell us a story about what that experience involved?
Yeah, sure. The Royal Theatre here in Denmark has kind of like a lab department or something where you can send text that isn't written for the stage. Originally, you can send in all kinds of texts, and if you are lucky, you get chosen to kind of have this week where you can work with your text with a director and actresses and actors, and I sent in 25 pages from new passengers, and they invited me for this week because they saw some stage potential in the text, and I have from the beginning, when the book was finished, I as I said before, I see it kind of like a movie or scenes, and I had an idea that it would suit would be good to put on stage, and they could see the same thing. And what was interesting was that we didn't really have to do that much about the text. We just I had to rewrite a bit and to shorten it, because this takes 2 hours to read everything out loud, and we had to do a play that was 1 hour long, so it was a bit of work to keep the whole story, but only in half of the words. So that was kind of the job for me, but I didn't really have to transform the text at all. And I think that's interesting for me to discover that I write something that is prose and poetry, and actually also a dramatic text at the same time. Yeah. And then it was only supposed to have there was supposed to be two I don't know the word, shows or performances, but it was sold out and a big success. So I think they have done it 8 or 9 times now, and with everything sold out, and it's and for me that was kind of like reading Misha's translation. This is another kind of translation where it's my work, but transformed into kind of a twin work, or very moving for me to be a part of that.
Oh, amazing. And I guess how does the novel get performed? Like those moments where you're unsure whether it's, say, dialogue between two teachers or an internal monologue. How is that performed?
They did it as a monologue, so there was only one actress who performed everything, and she would change. She was the narrator, but she was also everyone else. So I was so impressed to see how she could just with her body be 10 different people in 1 minute. She could just change and be a lot of different characters, and be both the narrator and the man she's having sex with in a toilet. And she could, it was very interesting for me to see her work with her body and her voice to kind of be everyone in one person.
It requires like a significant amount of range as an actress to do that.
And because you're alone on stage, and it was very kind of the set design was very simple. We only had a big blackboard, very gigantic blackboard, and then a table and nothing else. And she just had to use all these 2 items to change the room. So the table could be a couch, and it could be a train toilet, and I'm so impressed by her. She's amazing. I really hope that the English version will be put on stage as well. That would be,
Are you sharing some kind of inside knowledge there?
No, but I just pray for it to happen.
Okay. If anyone's involved in the theatre here, you've been pitched to get hold of the novel and see if you can craft a great performance.
I know that in Germany, the German version is this Sunday. It's on the radio, kind of like radio drama, radio play.
Oh, that would be interesting to hear that as well, because I guess that's a different process of translation, and would require potentially different techniques. Do you know have you heard it? Or...
No, it's this Sunday, so I'm very excited.
Oh, okay. So were you not hands-on in that?
No, not at all. I don't know anything about it, so I'll just lean back and see what happens.
Oh, fantastic! And with the actress that performs the work, do you have any choice in the casting, or was that you're just purely?
No, not at all. No. But it was very, I was so lucky that we really connected very well, and she's really a good reader, and she was very sensitive about the text and asked me a lot of questions. How do you mean, or what is the intention of this? And so we had a very close collaboration, and we are friends now, very good friends. So
that's amazing. I guess. Well, we're entering the last 15 minutes, and I've got a few questions. Did you wish to start a Q&A session?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
Okay, so the last question, the most recent question was, which radio station is the radio drama playing in Germany this Sunday?
I can't remember. I can't remember the name.
Okay, let's move on to the next question and. What the French spirit of the staircase.
I can find out before we end. I promise to just check my phone. I have it, so I can.
We could always send it out as a mailer or something.
Yeah.
So this one's for you, Tina, and it's from Reese. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Sorry if I haven't. When you said you were moved reading the first translation, did you feel any kind of distancing or estrangement from the novel?
No, actually, and I think that was, I have to say I was a bit worried before I started reading because what if I couldn't recognize my voice or my narrator's voice in Misha's work, but I really did. And I also got something new, and that I think that's really the, if you're a good translator, you have to, it has to feel that way to the writer. You have to recognize yourself, but it's also a new work, and Misha's voice is kind of in there too, or he's also a very sensitive reader and writer. I think that you have to be a writer to translate good. So I didn't feel any kind of distance. I felt like, yeah, it was my soul kind of like I feel with this book, but also something new. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And I've just got another question here. How did you transition from being a high school teacher to being an author?
Yeah, I wrote this book while I was a high school teacher, still was a high school teacher, and I, as you said in the beginning, I won the debutante prize in Denmark. And when that happened, I kind of made a decision to quit my job. I have known for a long time that what I wanted to do is to be a writer, but it's you kind of have, you can't just be that. You have to write something in order to be able to make that jump. And I think that winning that prize was kind of, I got a little money, but it was not much and nothing. Maybe I could pay my rent for 3 months or something like that. So it was very insecure, but it was the right thing for me to do. And I think that sometimes if you really want something, you have to just do it or try to do it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll have to find a way to make it work. But yeah, but it was, I think it was because of that it happened there. But I think that it would have happened maybe a bit later if I hadn't won that prize. But that was,
yeah. I guess, yeah, winning the prize gave you a shot of confidence to take a crack, but also keep you hungry rather than, where you're so comfortable you can drag it out for a bit. That's, thank you for sharing that. It's, I'm always wary about asking personal questions about, careers and stuff. Okay, I've got a few questions. People are getting confident. This is great. Thank you.
I just take a sip of beer.
No worries. I need to read through them because I just want to make sure. So the next one is you mentioned the importance of commuting. Do you find this commuting time useful for reading, listening to music, working, or is it a drain on your time and energy?
I actually loved it. I had an hour from my home on the train until I was at the high school, and I always told my co-workers, the other teachers that also were commuters, that I have to prepare from the first lessons, and I just pretended to be working, but actually I was always writing or just thinking, and I think that the commute is the train is a really rare and weird place actually, because it's the people that you commute with, you see them every day, and you are in a way very it's a very intimate room or space, and at the same time you don't know their names, and you can just imagine a lot of things about how they are and what they do, and what they eat for breakfast, and what kind of coffee they drink, and sometimes you see them fall asleep across from you, but and at the same time you know nothing. So it's kind of a very distant space, but at the same time a very intimate space. And I thought a lot about that when I was sitting here every day, and I think that in a way that kind of also sunk into the text, because the love relationship is at the same time very intimate. Kind of they have sex on the train toilet, and you can't really get any closer than that. But at the same time, they are so distant from each other. And so I think that this kind of duality, or I became aware of that because I spent so many hours on the train. And I think it's very, very interesting space, this train.
Yeah. And yeah, the next one. Sorry. Yeah, the free verse aspect of the novel has already been mentioned as something arising organically from the composition. But the questioner asks, I wonder if the various stylistic elements, so images, metaphors, dream interjections, were pre-considered or also appeared organically, and how did you balance those stylistic elements?
The dreams, for instance, or these fantasies, in the beginning, I just kind of, it says, the first time I see you naked, the second time, I also had numbers on the dreams, the first dream, the second dream, but I found out that I had to change that because I wanted to kind of make this organic form, or make the reader doubt whether is this reality or is this a fantasy. And so I had to not make it obvious. So that was a thing that I changed because I thought I want to make things a bit more blurry. So that was something that I decided to change. But I think that writing metaphors and these things kind of happen while I write. It's never something that I plan beforehand. And I think that in order to write well, I have to not think too much about it. Of course, I'm thinking a lot when I have written something, but when I just go into the text, I have to be open-minded, and I have to kind of go with what the words, where they lead me. I can't plan anything, something, but not everything. And I think that some of the best parts of the text for me appear it's some intuition or something that happens while I'm in there with my text, and the text does something itself through me, or I don't know if it sounds, but but I can't think everything through before.
So it's not like it's intensively plotted. It's more like like someone painting on a canvas. You kind of respond to what you put down, and you kind of make a decision whether you like that or not, or how you.
But then it's important to mention that that after that, there's a really hard work in finding out how to puzzle the text together, and I really think so hard about that and read it out loud and find out this phrase I have to put up here, and this I have to move, and I can use another word, and this is more precise. So it's very hard work to make the text fall into place. But that's a different part of the work than making the story flow, Okay. And I like both these.
It kind of appeals to different sides of the creative process. Someone's just thanked you for such an insightful answer.
Thank you.
There is a bit more praise. I was going to save it for the end, but that one just popped up and caught my eye. So thank you for the good feedback. That was Brendan. This question's a bit of it could be a bit of a spoiler for anyone that actually wants to read it. So you might want to keep the answer really curt and like no comment. But says throughout the novel, we see that the narrator is struggling with the idea of adulthood. Does she get any closure in the end of the novel after her relationship with the unnamed man?
No, I don't think that there's not any closure. And I will not, I don't think I'm gonna spoil the ending, but it's not like the narrator and the reader can say, I learned this and now everything fall into place and I'm an adult. And I think that for me, an important point is that that the idea of adulthood is maybe an illusion. I think that for me, when I was younger, I always thought that adulthood would be kind of some place that I would land in, or I would find myself, now I'm an adult and I know what I want to do with my life and I can find some kind of peace. And I think that now being 34 and it's not going to happen. You know, I'm me and all my doubts and all my, they're going to last throughout. And I think that's been interesting for me. The readers of this novel are of very different ages. A lot of older people have loved the book as well. And I think that the kind of the trouble that she's going through, it actually doesn't really have anything to do with that age, or some of it you can also fall in love with someone that belongs to another one when you are 50 years old or 60 years old, and you don't know who you are when you are 40 or 45. I think that the idea to kind of be to land somewhere in adult life, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think
I completely agree. I mean, we're of a similar age, and I feel like you kind of grow up as a kid thinking that adulthood's this place where you get a trophy and you think, I've made it, I'm successful. But if I compare myself to my brothers, it's wildly different. I think different readers will see the universal truths. So like the relationship between the protagonist and the unnamed man. In this instance, for the reader, the person that asked that question, you see the universal kind of emotions as they go through the novel, through the months. You see the doubts, the turmoil, those little flashes of anger. I mean, I'm not going to say too much because I think those little moments are what make the novel. You know, those kind of things that you recognise as a flash of emotion. But thank you for that answer. I thought it was just going to be a cut. I'm giving everything away. Read it, buy it, read it. And this one's an interesting one. Relatively few books get published from Denmark in English. Sorry about the noise there. More from Swedish, Norwegian, French, etc. So what does it mean to you as an author to get published in Britain?
Very much, and I can't really, I don't really know if I've understood it yet. I think it's a very big thing for me. I don't really know what else to say, but I'm very curious what's gonna happen now. If a lot of people will buy it and read it, I don't really know. But in the first place, I'm just very, very grateful that this happened and that this book exists, and that, and I think that now that there's an English version, it makes it so much easier for this book to go out further, because a lot of people from all over the world can read it now, and I think that the English version is maybe more important than a lot of other languages. So I think that in many ways it's a very big thing.
It's a gateway language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of publishers who can't read Danish or don't have anybody on their staff to read Danish, but if they can see, it's like in English, then they can invest in translation or translation.
They'll get to experience a novel, and it'll, like you say, it's a gateway, and it will grow into something bigger. It's quite an exciting moment today. The book is officially out in the UK. The punctuation and form of new passengers is an important part. Would you consider writing something in future that used other forms, maybe verse or writing for audiobook podcast consumption, or even a good old epistolary novel? Or do you prefer to wait and see what happens when you sit down to write? This is, you could maybe share your latest work that came out.
I published this novel 3 months ago in Denmark, my second novel, and it was the same thing. I didn't really, when I sat down to see what would happen, I didn't plan for it, for how it was supposed to look. But you can see that I just told you, Lloyd, just before we started, that it looks kind of the same, but there's a very, very big difference to me because there's punctuation in this one. I don't use it kind of the regular way. I have kind of made my own system for the punctuation, but it's been, but that's a big difference. And there are also some texts in here that are conversations on Messenger and text messages so there are some new things, but it's kind of the same form that I have evolved, and there's a new thing also that this is kind of a very regular story. You start from one point and you kind of just go with the narrator till the end. But in the new novel, there are two time levels, or how do you say that? That kind of mix together, so you can float in and out of time as well. So that really demands a lot from me to make that work for the reader. So I think that I've done something that's much more complex, but with the same essential form or genre that New Passengers has it, but it's more complex. And I don't know, I just started something new and I don't want to say anything about it yet because then I can ruin everything, but and I don't know how that's gonna look so it's and I think it has to be that way, that I don't really know what will happen when
Cool. Thank you so much. We've just gone 8 o'clock. If anyone's got any other questions they wish to answer, you're welcome to unmute yourself. Misha, I don't know if you've got anything you wish to ask, or I know you've been peppering questions throughout the conversation.
I'm fine. Okay. I'm learning lots.
Yeah, I'm sitting back and just, I feel richer for this last hour. I've got a message from one of our guests, and it's just a bit of personal praise. And she says that I just wanted to let you know that I loved your book. It reminded me of Virginia Woolf's The Waves. You're the Virginia Woolf, the Danish Virginia Woolf in my mind, and I mean the highest praise I could possibly verbalise.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. Thank you.
I think everyone that gets to discover this work will be excited by your talent and Misha's translation as well, which is so good. You don't notice it, which I think is testament to great quality. It doesn't impose itself, and I just want to thank you both for joining me. It's quite late where you are. I've had a great night. I've enjoyed reading this and considering all aspects of this.
So Lloyd, we were talking about reading one final section.
Oh yes. Oh, forgive me. Yeah. Let's. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Reading. I also have a couple other small questions. One is, if somebody wants to buy this book, where do they get it?
A lot of people have purchased the book in combination with their ticket, and I'm going to make it available from Libreria's website this evening. What I'll do is I'll put a placeholder up and then actually get a proper good quality image tomorrow when the light's good. So yeah, it will be available from our website, libreria.io, just after the event. I'll get it posted before I go home.
Great.
Yeah, would you, shall we do the other reading?
Yeah, if people want to hear something, I can, yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
2 seconds, I just have to, yeah. And now I think we are in September, yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, the middle of the book. Eleverne laver næsten alle sammen den samme fejl. Nødt til i stedet for nødt til. Jeg har lavet en sjov PowerPoint med et billede af en valnød med et kryds over. Man er ikke nødt til noget, man er nødt til noget. Man er ikke nødt til noget, man er nødt til noget. På vej hjem i toget tænker jeg, sikke noget pis at stå og sige. 5. gang jeg ser dig nøgen, mit soveværelse, selvom det er risikabelt. Men vi tør ikke blive i toget, og det er blevet for koldt til at være udenfor. Du bader før du går, for ikke at tage min duft med dig hjem. Jeg lugter til håndklædet bagefter. 6. gang jeg ser dig nøgen, mit soveværelse. Jeg lægger mig på sengen bagefter, ved siden af den hovedpude, du har mast helt flad. Jeg prøver at lade være med at tænke på din kones nøgne krop. Din kones nøgne krop. Jeg ved ikke, hvorfor ingen af os bruger hendes navn. Tror du ikke, jeg ved, hvad hun hedder? 7. gang jeg ser dig nøgen. Mit køkken. Formiddag. Sådan et underligt lys, da du er gået. Og en duft af noget sødt fra posen på bordet. Du har haft kage med. En pik, en kage, en hjerne, et hjerte har du haft med. Og efterladt kagen. Jeg sætter vand over og lægger mig på køkkengulvet. Jeg kommer før det koger. Maria. Jeg tror, jeg stopper der, Misha. Vil du...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, let you take over.
Sure. Should we talk a little bit about the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
So so this was just a little translation problem on the first of these pages, where in the Danish, there's she's preparing a PowerPoint for students where the students make a mistake, a common mistake, where instead of needing to do something, they use another form of the word need that is the same as the word nut. And so she makes a PowerPoint with a nut crossed out. That is a little hard to translate to English. So what I did is I looked at a bunch of sites I Googled common grammar errors for high school students and stuff like that. And I read a couple hundred of them. And you'll see what I came up with.
I love this. I just have to say I love this.
The students almost all make the same mistake. Flush out instead of flesh out. I've made a funny PowerPoint, a picture of a toilet with an X across it. You don't flush out an argument, you flesh it out. You don't flush it out, you flesh it out. Going home on the train, I think, what a load of crock to stand there and say. The 5th time I see you naked, my bedroom, even though it's risky, but we don't dare stay on the train, and it's become too cold to be outside. You shower before you go, so you don't carry my smell home. I sniff the towel afterward. The 6th time I see you naked, my bedroom. I lie down on the bed afterward, beside the pillow you mashed flat. I try not to think about your wife's naked body. your wife's naked body. I'm not sure why neither of us says her name. Don't you think I know what she's called? The 7th time I see you naked, my kitchen, morning, such a weird light when you've left, and a scent of something sweet from the bag on the table. You brought cake, a cock, a cake, a brain, a heart, you brought and left behind the cake. I put the kettle on, lie down on the kitchen floor. I come before it boils. Maria.
Yay.
Thank you. I actually did just miss a question that I think is kind of a really interesting one, and it is related to Virginia Woolf and the compliment. Tine, do you consciously place yourself in a tradition of women's writing, or do you see yourself as a group of contemporary women writers who have a specific relationship to the literary establishment or to the world?
I don't really think about that when I write, and I think that's important. That when you're writing, you can't really think about the way your work is being comprehended, or who you're being put in a box with, or who you are, what your generation is. I think that I write what I feel like I have to write. But I think that there are in Denmark a lot of books right now who and I think that the new book I've written here and kind of deals with some of the same things that are how to be a woman with all these expectations about being a mother, for example. And I think that that the new book also deals with that, being an artist and being a mother. How do you kind of get these things to melt? And I think that, and maybe also some new aspects of motherhood or not being a mother, and I think that that's something that in Denmark right now a lot of books are concerned with in different ways. But I don't really place myself along with others when I write. I write something, and then of course I'm a part of the time, and so I think that there are some things that kind of where we are some young voices who are concerned with the same things, but it's not something that I'm conscious about when I read or write.
That's great. Thank you so much. A lot of people have just said that well, thank you for both offering your time to share the work and to read in both languages. And one comment says poetic prose in both languages. So I think that's testament to the quality of the work that you guys have shared with us. I want to thank everyone for sticking with me and for joining me tonight. It might be late where you are, so I really appreciate that. And Misha, Tine, thank you so much for your time. It's been a joy.